feel nauseous, believe me. Never had a lot of shit come easy. Had to work hard, struggle just to be me. Had to rise up just so they could see me. Did what I had to do just to feed me. And what was left over I put towards my dreaming. But the only thing in life that has meaning are the things you gotta work for, believe me. Take into your hands a plan. Your own hands can land your own brand. And damn, I feel like no one takes accountability. They want the credibility, convincingly unwilling to put in the hours it takes to get some power. Don't be f***ing sour. Take a cold shower. Scream until you're louder. Work until you're prouder. And f*** all the doubters, they're just your downers. I swear to God they all let me down. I always fought just to wear the crown. I'm off at these fucking clowns who were all taught they deserve an ounce. It's only worth it if you work for it. It's only worth it if you work for it. I won't stop till they hear me now. I won't stop till I wear the crown. I'm just telling you to fight for your dreams, but it's not what it seems. Man, it's hard to be seen when everybody wants to be king. Yeah, they all wanna ring, yeah, we all wanna be free. So show me what you got, what you bring, how you fight in the ring, how you take a fucking swing. Do you got heart, are you mean? Got some scars, got some needs, are you willing to go bleed? I swear to God they all let me down. I always fought just to wear the crown. I'm off at these fucking clowns who were all taught they deserve an ounce. It's only worth it if you work for it. It's only worth it if you work for it. I won't stop till they hear me now. I won't stop till I wear the crown. I swear to God they all let me down. I always fought just to wear the crown. I'm off at these fucking clowns.
Alright, I've decided we're just gonna get on right now. Oh, lovely. Oop. And is it on? It is. Okay, so I think as of right now, I currently either have to gather materials to build a house, or get armor, like proper armor, or we could go mining and work on our trunk. But I think for now I'm gonna I don't know what I'm gonna do, actually. I'm a very indecisive person, as we always know. I'm just hoping I don't get copyrighted. Because I did not look into copyright before this, because I am very, very smart. Or do we have the stuff to make a fishing rod? We could go fishing. We do not. Oh, that's sad. I don't really care. We have food. Okay. I think. Yeah. You know what? Let's go. First of all, we're gonna fix that. We don't want any floating trees. We're just gonna and jump back up. Here I left on the game music. I love listening to the classic game music. Just don't come for me. I prefer it sometimes. Look, just down here. Is it going to kill me? Probably no. Surprising. Usually everything is out to get me. And just jump. I picked a beautiful area. Oh my god. Wow. Ow. There's a creeper. Why did I just lag? That was the worst. Oh, it's followed me. I'm scared of creepers. That's why we have trees. That was a good move. Great move. Jump. And I think we're just gonna cut down some trees from now and make a little temporary house to hide from things, because currently my place is not really the most safe, since it's suspended in air above water. Well, it's really just a part of the water, but yeah. I already forgot what I was doing. We're getting wood. We're just gonna move behind and get some wood. I don't know why I play hardcore when I'm scared of mobs. I'm not scared of them, I'm just bad at. Ooh. Oh. Give me apple. Well, give me. Mine. I just don't like fighting mobs. And we're just gonna get some wood. We should find some grass to put up here, or find a way to get grass up here. That'd be nice. Where are we building our temporary little bunker? I think. Should build it kind of into the wall, or like not there. Maybe like tucked away up there. That'd be cool. Quick escape from the water. Yeah, I'll need some dirt too. I'll just need terraforming a little bit. We're just gonna oh, my keyboard looks like it's just a little bit of a jump. And then oh, okay, this is gonna be harder to get rid of some of the jungle than I thought. We're just gonna steal some of it, because why wouldn't we just cut down the forest in Minecraft? Because since when have we ever cut down a forest? I might change the music to lo-fi very, very soon though, because I'm already getting bored from it. Or not bored, distracted. I'm a very distractible person. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I'm so distractible. But I have a shortcut to my music. Please don't play ads. It's gonna play ads on YouTube. Why? Why is YouTube like this? Why is it always YouTube that does that to me? Spotify is so nice. So nice to me. YouTube, no. There we go. There we go. And now we got Animal Crossing music, and that's just awesome. You know your own music's loud enough when you can't hear over it. I'm sorry, I like Animal Crossing music a little bit too much some days. Oh wait, we should build a tree house. Yeah, we're gonna build a little tree house as our little escape. Because why build a safe area for a safe area? when have I ever fallen to my death in anything ever? Why would I? I'm safe. I'm definitely not an idiot. Definitely know what I'm doing right now. We need. Ugh, Alright, do we want... We aren't going to do that yet. Which tree are we using? I think we should do it on one of the jungle trees. This one. Why have it from tree to tree? On that one. We're going over there. Very safe place, I guess. Is we get rid of it. It's not gonna be pretty. It is not gonna be a pretty way up. That's alright. Why have a functioning way up either? I mean, I'm glad. I'm just happy to be streaming again. It's been what, almost a month. Like 25 days or something since the stream last. I don't know. They should have streamed on April Fools because my streams are a joke. Okay, and then up one. I build the most uneven staircases, and I know people love me for it. Why would I need an even staircase? Why not just run up them at Mach speed no matter how weird they look? I need my axe. Why am I an idiot? Because I'm an idiot, that's why. Thank you, Reed. 1 minute. Why be smart when Stupid comes with a free pack of crayons? Don't quote me on that. Please. I don't know what to talk about. I think, you know, let's go and look at this from far away and see how much I'm gonna love it. And how much everyone else is not going to. Noob. It's not that bad. That is surprising. It is not that bad. And then we are going to just gotta get up here somehow. I think we're gonna use ladders because they're the thing I hate the most. Oh, and alright. Whoa! That's about as good as blah, 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 blah. That's a good idea. Very, very good idea. Oh. Why have good ideas when you can have not good ideas that are way funner? So we should, yeah, we're making it another. Okay, it's gonna be a good old-fashioned treehouse. The stone cutter. I was like, let's put the wood in the stone cutter. See how that works. Probably very well. Oh, hello. 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 How is you? Oh. And hopefully, do not fall off. Don't fall off. Mine has been good. How has yours been? Be better if I didn't fall off. And that's what I went down for. I went through food, not slabs. My day has been good. How was yours day? Good? That's good. Okay. That is very good. I hope you're enjoying the stream right now. I'm very smart. I'm gonna put that back in there. I have the best ideas when it comes to things that you can't get fall damage in. That didn't make sense, but I don't need to make sense. And we're just gonna go like this. We're gonna go pop. I just need a place that won't have creepers. What better place than treetops? Mine. We're gonna go womp womp womp. And all the way. And then we've gotten all the way around the tree, I think. Or at least the majority of the tree. We're gonna look like, there we go. I have a semblance of a brain cell sometimes. Can I even get up there? This is a bigger question. What is my favorite? All of it. I like building. Not mobs. Mobs are terrifying and I don't like them. They're mean to me. We're making a little staircase there because I like that. Oh. We're gonna have 2 layers. Because why not? Go down a block, please. Mobs are horrible. I hate creepers most, mainly because they're sneaky. Sneaky, sneaky. nice sunset though. You can see everything. You can see my discs. You can see my giant pit, discs, the little farm, my bed, the sun, stars. It's perfect. Do I still have the, no, I don't. Thank you, it is a shader pack. I think it's called T. Because the other one legs everything out right now. For whatever reason, it just doesn't do live very well. Oh, there is a zombie. One. Where'd it go? Oh. It's disappeared. There's the thing. Oh. I missed. Boop, boop. Right. Wow! And what we're needing? We were needing more torches or setting fire. That probably wouldn't be a good idea because it's my house. I don't need this. It's a good looking treehouse. Very, very simple, but good looking treehouse. Because it has some stairs, and stairs are easier. Okay, I need a crafting table, but I don't want to go downstairs to the other crafting table. So what do? We have a 7th crafting table in like this area. Because why? Why go to the other crafting table when you can just do it here? Boop. I don't have any more jungle logs. Sound fun tree. That isn't going to blah blah. Some wood. I still don't have iron tools yet. I have played Minecraft since it came out. I played it on the Legacy consoles though. Legacy console being, I played it on the Xbox even though everyone hated, or not really hated, they didn't like the Legacy console players a lot. But oh well. So yeah, I've played it for a long time. I'm still not good at the game though. Just because you've done something for a long time does not mean you're good at it. Just because you're new to something doesn't mean you're bad at it either, so. I don't want to go back down and up, so we're gonna do this the difficult way. Okay, we need to make my railing. Okay, there we go. And we go. Sometimes being bad at something is what makes it fun, in my opinion. So you don't really have to be good at anything to have fun with it. I'm making it a circle. I'm sorry. I want to make it a circle. Don't mind the wood with your pickaxe. There we go. It's playing an ad. You're muting the ad. Ooh, ooh. Alright, ad is back. I would be using Spotify, but it's just not cooperating today. And also, I don't have a gay copyright free playlist. Yet. I'm working on it. Gotta place crafting bench here. And this is when we notice our entire platform is not in the right space. So we have to do the lovely thing of moving it down one block. One thing at a time without standing on the blocks because full damage. My worst enemy. No. There you go. Pop. There we go. That's the right one. I think the longest I had was about 5 months. And I had a lot done in it, and I ended up dying because I fell to my death. Which is actually how most of my hardcore worlds end up, is me falling. Because fall damage and Enderman just love me. Blood, please. There's a reason fall damage is probably my biggest reason I don't have hardcore worlds for long. Yeah, but it's not gonna stop me from doing this stuff. I prefer floating builds or like build in the sky, so it's more of my issue. But like, it's not gonna stop me. Why would something like that stop me? Reason? I don't have reason. Most of the time. Nope. And then we just go wow. Oh. You get to the one-legged part where it's lovely. Flop our way on over. I really like where we are in this world. This is a very good generation. Lucky spawn point, I guess, mainly. Very lucky spawn point. Let's go farm. Where are we gonna put our torch? We're gonna put it there for now. I think we can probably circle it back around in 36. It doesn't need to be a big platform, it's just to hide from mobs sometimes. There's too many creepers or something. Maybe one we can always build a second level. Little hut. There we go. That is not how you get up there. Wow. I'll make this one a little circle too, because why not? Bum bum. Bum 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 bum. We can watch the sunset as we hide our tail between our legs and run back to the base. Should probably light up around here too. We'll do that in the morning. That is not my bed. That is a chest. Why would I? Do you sleep in your chests? Probably not. Probably not a good idea. Very cramped. I wonder. The pit probably hasn't changed since last time we saw it. Oh, yes. Who put that there? Thank you. Who's putting grass in my pit? Why are they putting grass? I'm not getting down there to put grass, to ungrass the pit. It can stay for now. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Farmer Boy. Farmer Boy. I like my energy too. Here we go. That looks like, what is it? A spindle? What's that thing that, strings on? Oh, I did do that. No, like, I didn't put the grass there, did I? What is it? It's not a need. Why would it? Oh yeah, we were making a timer wall to see if I can live long enough to have blue copper. No, not a yo-yo. Like the thing for sewing, or like the cable thing. Like it's not a spindle, but it's a bobbin. It looks like a bobbin. That's what it looks like. I'm putting this bed up at the tree house. Wait, we have dye. We're making it blue. We're making it blue. They say this. It does work. Boop. I'm following the torches back up. It's a faster way. Go this way. You need to make stairs to the stairs to the stairs. We're putting the bed on the second story. We're gonna make it look like a couch, actually. The ghost. It was a ghost. Oh, this ghost. That. What was it? 6. Then a sign. Then making a couch. So we need yeah, that looks like a couch. I think. What was I doing? What? You can speak like a normal person. You don't have to whisper, because I can't hear you.
1 second.
Alright. My sister was talking to me. And then we're gonna go up. That's not okay, that's not gonna got it. And then we're gonna go this way. And then we're gonna do some very quick terraforming to make some nice stairs. Then you're going to get these ones so they're like a nice little path. Then and then make a little path on our way up. And boop, 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 boop. Okay, I need more dirt. I thought wrong of how much dirt I actually needed, which is okay because we always have more for the most part. Should make a giant dirt mansion. I am procrastinating right now, so I might not be the best person to ask that. I'm procrastinating a bunch of homework I got today. So, I have to have like 2 things going at once. So if I'm doing homework, I need something else to do, like to have around. So I can't sit still and just do. So like have a video or like music playing. It helps a lot if you just need something else to do and do at the same time. Just try and focus on one or both at the same time.
Doppelfeld an den Beinen.
Which is why music is a good thing to try and focus on.
Neuen Flex entdeckt. Einfach flexibel.
So,
Wochenlang.
yeah, it does make two of us. I'm very bad. I procrastinate a lot. And I'm bad at focusing. And I need a hoe. There we go. Are you just breathing and standing? My sister's
Elon
here.
Musk just bought Twitter for 44.8 million.
I thought he was buying it for 50 million.
Well, no.
Well, Elon Musk
tried
just
to
bought Twitter.
Well, he tried to buy it for 50 million, but he just paid 448 million
448 million. That's even
for
more.
Twitter. Yeah, because Twitter wouldn't budge. Anywhoosie.
Thank you for
Anywhoosie
telling me
feels-
that Twitter got bought out. Why? Okay. Current events for everyone else, I guess. Twitter got bought out. $48 million. What? Rich people are on another level. Jeez. I'm just a little small town kid. What type of money you guys have in the cities? What the hell? I need dirt. Nice old good snack to munch on. Okay, never mind. I didn't need dirt. I need more slabs. More slabs. More slabs for the slabby slapper. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means, guys. Dun, 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 dun. And a bun. What's with me and randomly throwing myself in bodies of water? Because there's somebody else. I need a pickaxe. Whee. Physics will never seem to amaze me. Never fail to cease to amaze me. There we go. English is hard. And my first language is English. Well, that's why I needed the slab. I'm gonna do a dirt roll stint up. And we're gonna put slabs in the water for now until we can like get lanterns or glowstone to put there for now. One, two, three, and on this side we go. One, two, three. And get rid of the dirt. Well, I didn't need to shove in the first place. What is that? We stay above water, and then we go. Never mind, we're not staying above water. Oh, it's a magma blocks. And then oopsie daisy. Get up here. And I'm glad I put torches around there. So many less mobs. So many less mobs. It's so much easier to not get murdered. Moving. I think we're gonna mine. No, we need to get food fast. Oh. Bloop. Get some bread. No, because bread is good for you. You should eat your bread. I think we're gonna do this for a little bit while I decide what I was trying to remember. Because I definitely do not remember what I was trying to. And I've gotten distracted already. We'll do a tour of the hole. So this is the pit. I decided to dig a huge hole because my favorite animal in Minecraft. What is, I don't know. In 1.18.2, they are currently axolotls and bees, but also we're getting frogs soon, and I've always really liked frogs, like mushrooms and stuff. But also cow go moo, so cow good. Cow is good. Cow go burr. we love them. What's Chad's favorite animal in Minecraft? Or what's your favorite animal, farmer boy? Oh, goats is another good one too. Cause we're getting goats and rams soon, and that's gonna be really fun. What is wrong with that corner? It's just this corner that looks weird. It's all red. The other ones are like normal colors, but it's that one. Is there lava here? Stand a little back, find out. Do a little hidey hole. Nope, just a weird corner. Maybe it's cursed. I don't. No, but you can eat the mud they're adding. They're adding. I'm just kidding. I would try. Pandas or axolotls? Oh, I forgot about the pandas. Oh, the pandas are so cute. I like the baby ones. I like all of the animals. All the passive animals, basically. Mine is chickens. They get in the way a lot for no reason. Passive creatures, except glow squids, mainly because I'm still upset about the piss cow. I wanted piss cow. Piss cow is good. Piss cow is good. What were they called? Moo blooms. I like the blue one though. Blue ones are good. I wonder what layer we're on. I know we're past layer 20. But you see. For some reason, I can't get it not that way, so I don't know what layer I'm on. I did get my chat fixed. So that's fun. It's fun for everyone who gets to deal with me on Hypixel and my shenanigans. Speaking of Hypixel, I think I'm just gonna finish mining up a little bit of stone. And then, like always, we're gonna go play TNT Run for like 1 or 2 rounds, and then I'm gonna end the stream. Just because I know it's a little bit of a shorter stream today, but when is it not a short stream? The first time I streamed I streamed for 3 hours one day. Imagine if they added an update where if you hit any animal, it will attack you. Like if you hit a cow, it will charge at you. They have mods. They have, wait, one second, we're writing that down. Mods. Animal attack back. I'm keeping that one for later. By later, I mean whenever I decide to either stream or upload next, which is who knows how long. I was gonna end it when we're gonna finish it when we ended that pickaxe. To Hypixel we go. To Hypixel we go. They're probably online. Nacho again. Back. Yes. Proceed. Vanilla Minecraft. That'd be horrifying. It'd be so hard to just do. I don't play Bed Wars. Why am I in the Bed Wars lobby? I don't want to be in the Bed Wars. I don't want to be in the Bed Wars lobby. I don't even know how to play Bed Wars without dying in the first 10 seconds. TNT. TNT games. Where's our lovely TNT run? That's not, there we are. Our favorite. Oh, you won't be able to miss him. He's very rainbow. That's alright. That's an axolotl. Oh, we're just talking about them. Nice. I think we're only gonna do 1 round of TNT run, just because I forgot I have homework to do and I'm getting notifications for it. Oh. Oh god, there's a dream skin. That's gonna always be fun. After TNT run, I'll have to look what it's called actually. Oh god. Well, we're gonna quickly look what it's called. What's it called? I'm not good at it, but I really like it, so it's perfect. What's it called? It is called Blitz. Blitz Survival. I probably just teleported myself to the lobby. Blitz Survival games. Wins. Kills 2, wins none. Yeah. And then we're just gonna go. I'm gonna leave you guys. Don't know if anyone I know is streaming one right now. 1 second. Don't play my VOD or whatever. Shh. Nope. It doesn't look like I know anyone online. Do we? It's like a PB. It's like a PvP thing. I think we're gonna. I don't know who we're leaving us with. I think we're just gonna leave us with ourselves today. Unless VCAT is. Never mind. I'm trying to find some. Yeah. I can't find anyone doing what we're doing, so we're just gonna go. Oh, and it's playing noise. Shh. There we go. Shush at it. It'll stop. Enjoy the rest of your day then. Thank you. We're gonna go to our. It's my person. I wonder what thing we're going on to. And this is not the right one. We need the other profile. We're gonna leave off on our Hypixel Island because why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we do something that makes absolutely no sense? Well, anyways, that's the end of today's stream. Just because, yeah. And I hope all of you are doing well and you have a good day, night, evening, afternoon, morning existence. If you never see one of my videos again, I hope you guys have a good existence. And yeah, I hope I'll see most of you again. And thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. Bye.